Hello, my name is Matthew, and I just read The Adventure of the Missing Three-Quarter by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a part of my read-along series and book club with Steve Donahue. We're reading murder mysteries in the month of March, and we're reading all of the Sherlock Holmes short stories. And The Adventure of the Missing Three-Quarter had several notable features. One of the things that I've been thinking about in the past several recent short stories, just the last few that I've been reading, for a format, the murder mystery format, and especially the Sherlock Holmes format, it really feels like there's a very rigid structure. It's going to start with Sherlock and Watson in the apartment. Someone bursts into the room. They tell a long, involving, mysterious story. Involves some kind of mystery, and it ends with Sherlock solving the case and then explaining how he solved it. And essentially, that's the structure of these stories. There's also the element of Watson choosing these stories and seeing all of this through Watson's eyes. But it's not nearly as formulaic or rigid as it might appear from the outside, or even the remembrances that I've personally had when I think about these short stories while I'm in the middle of reading them. I found Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to be fairly experimental in how he's telling these stories, either with additional backstories or trying different ways to kickstart the case of the week. And recently, I found that the tail end of each story will have some character with that exposition dump. So some character at the end of the story that has a long tale to be told to wrap up the mystery of the week. And I started seeing that as a distinctive feature of the last two or three short stories. And what I realized is the earlier short stories, we would have that person come into the room, frenzied and harried, and would say, I have a long story to tell. And it would essentially be a short story. We would be introduced to all sorts of new characters, the setting that the story is being told, the intricate confluence of all the events that are happening that lead up to this unique, perplexing situation that Sherlock will become intrigued by and want to solve. And sometimes you would just have a very long, short story, and it's set in the confines that it's a short story that Sherlock is listening to, and then we get the solution in various ways. The past couple short stories, Sherlock's cases, are different in a nuanced way. We still get the beginning. We'll get that little seed to start the mystery. But it does seem to be much more about creating a bit of intrigue. We get an idea of what's going on, but it's to intrigue Sherlock, and by extension, to intrigue the reader. And there's a lot of information that is being withheld from us, whereas before we would be told a lot of information that Sherlock in this fictional world is able to extrapolate and extract information and contextual pieces of evidence that would be lost upon us and lost upon Watson. Now we have information that we're not given at all, and it makes it more riveting because it's like a fine-tuned way of pulling us into the story. But then to have everything wrap up, we still need all the information, and it comes at the tail end of the story. I'm trying to explain that, and if you're reading them, you might notice that as well. If you don't, I'd be interested to know that also. And also, this short story, the Adventure of the Missing Three-Quarter, involves sports. The person, Sherlock gets a telegram, but then the person that arrives at his doorstep blocks the light of the doorway. Just a large, hulking, athletic man, and he starts telling the story of he starts telling his story, and he is in college, and he plays rugby, I believe. There's a few different terms that are used. Rugger is used, football is mentioned, but the terms that are used, and the little that I know about sports, it sounds like what today I would call rugby. And so there's a university rugby team. They have their all-star player, terrible with names, I think it was George Staunton, and he's gone missing. We have a reliable teammate here at the behest of the team, and also for genuine concern of this missing colleague and player, asking for Sherlock's help. And the way that this sportsman, this athlete, introduces the story that he wants to tell, and just his general approach is the assumption that Sherlock knows all about it. And there's some really great aspects of this. One is that Sherlock knows all about everything, so it's not an unreasonable leap to make. Sherlock knows the most obscure, esoteric bits of information. He knows in-depth historical things. He's caught up on the news. He just seems to know everything. And it's two aspects that I like. So it's the perception that this college athlete would have, and I have some personal experience with that. I remember recently at a place of work, having a coworker who was just in college and was telling me about his high school lacrosse team, and he was really surprised that I didn't know that his lacrosse team made state champion 4 years in a row and is considered one of the best lacrosse teams in the state. And Sherlock even mentions this to this athlete that's talking to him when he says he doesn't know this person's name. He doesn't really know very much about sports. The person is surprised, and Sherlock says, You live in a better world. It's an aspect of the world that, in some ways, Sherlock, one, isn't interested in, but also doesn't have the luxury of dedicating the time to be informed about, because Sherlock's presence isn't essentially needed. But the athlete and the coworker that I had that was so dumbfounded that I wasn't aware of it comes from a place when you're in high school or you're in college and you're on a team or you're a fan of a team, and it can just feel like the whole world. And when something is your whole world, it's not unreasonable to think you take it for granted. You you just believe everyone knows and everyone's following, and it's the most important game on everyone's mind, and everyone knows all the athletes, and everyone cares about them, and all of those sorts of things. As you get older, you can remember that and appreciate that innocent sort of enthusiasm. Now back to Sherlock and his perception of the person coming in and talking about technical details of different positions on a rugby team, and in the title, the three-quarter, it seems to me is a position. That's a person's position on the team, or their role in the team. Sherlock doesn't know exactly what he's talking about. He doesn't really know the people. He might not really know the game. And it reminded me of one of my favorite shows, Frasier, and Frasier's even more affected brother Niles. And they have their father, who is a hard-boiled, injured, retired cop on the beat. And so you have these two kind of aristocratic, wealthy, educated doctors, Frasier and Niles. They're both psychiatrists. They appreciate French wine, and they watch and listen to German opera, and they go to different clubs and enjoy drinking their espressos, and they read the Charter House of Parma, all those things. And Marty, the father, was having a group of old retired cops over to watch a boxing match. And so Frasier and Niles are about to have a night on the town. They're going to go to the opera or something, or a symphony. And the retired police officers start piling into the apartment while Frasier and Niles are on the way out. And one of the cops says, "Oh, Niles, you're not going to stay for the boxing match?" And Niles says, "Oh my, I didn't even know it was boxing season." And you just have a dumb look on both of their faces as they pass each other. But we have someone on a rugby team that has gone missing. Sherlock gets involved. We're introduced to another character. We learn a chain of events, all the specifics, and there's one key antagonist that comes up into this story, and it's this doctor. And the doctor is having a back and forth with Sherlock and outwitting him, or getting the better of Sherlock. Sherlock even mentions to Watson a comparison to Moriarty. And he even says, if this doctor turned his attention away from the medical practice, we could have a formidable opponent. And we have like 2 or 3 nights where Sherlock is coming home after his typical disappearance, where he runs around, shooting off telegrams, getting information, doing all of his, maybe getting into disguises, all those sorts of things. Typically, he comes back in triumph and he's beaming, or he knows that he's ahead of everybody and can have a bit of theatrics. And night after night, dealing with this doctor, he's trying to chase down this carriage or follow a carriage and figure out the driver of the carriage is the doctor. He's trying to figure out where this doctor is going every day. It feels like and is a integral part of solving the mystery of the missing rugby player. Each time Sherlock comes back, just dejected, disappointed, exhausted, fatigued, and hungry. Hasn't made any headway. He comes back and he goes, "It was a waste of a day." He resorts to using, I can't remember the breed, but essentially a bloodhound, some scent-seeking dog, to follow this carriage, and so then we have the moment where we figure out where the where the rugby player is, the doctor's involvement, why he is missing. This is at the end of the story, and this is what I was saying at the beginning of this video, where we then get a long exposition or the short story, all the information that we didn't have as a reader, and that we would more than likely would have gotten in an earlier Sherlock Holmes short story. All the information at the end, in an earlier Sherlock story, it's more likely that we would have gotten at least some of that at the beginning. And it trails off with the case being solved. There was several elements of this that I really enjoyed and made me think. The doctor was a great character. Not necessarily the best put together case where there's layers of mystery and things like that, but seeing Sherlock's fruitless attempts to, well, his attempts that he's consistently determined to find another avenue. So something didn't work, and he tries something else, and then he tries something else, and that's the key. I believe, not just that it's funny that he was getting outdone by somebody else. So the Adventure of the Missing Three-Quarter. I enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read it. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and take care.